The first time I saw her, she was talking to the barista about the weather, not in the way people do when they want to fill silence, but like she actually noticed things. The shift in the light, the smell after rain, how the windows always fogged on one side first. I remember thinking she sounded like someone who'd been alone for a while. She always ordered the same thing, black coffee, 1 sugar, stirred slowly with her ring finger. No ring, though. Just the habit. I was at the corner table again, pretending to read. My laptop was open, some half-finished code blinking on the screen. I kept checking the same sentence over and over, not really seeing it. She sat across the room, by the window, sunlight tracing the edges of her hair like it was trying to remember her. When the barista called my name, she looked up for a second. Just a glance. But it felt like something small and quiet inside me turned its head too. It started small. She noticed I always got my coffee too hot and never waited for it to cool. She'd smile when I winced. One morning, she said, "You'll burn your tongue again." Just like that, casual, like we'd known each other for months. I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Maybe I like the pain." She laughed, not out loud, but into her cup. Then she looked at me, almost like she was testing if I'd meant it. From that day, she remembered my order. Even before I reached the counter, it was ready. "Too hot?" she'd ask. "Always," I'd say. The joke stayed small. The spaces between them didn't. I never asked her age. She never asked about my plans. But she noticed things, the calluses on my fingers, the notebook I carried but never wrote in, the way I always typed a message and then deleted it before sending. One afternoon, she caught me doing it. "Does it help?" she asked. "What?" "Writing things you'll never send." I shrugged. "Only until it doesn't." She smiled. "That's most things, isn't it?" For a moment, neither of us moved. The clock ticked behind her. Someone laughed outside. The air felt heavier than it should. Weeks passed like that, quiet, almost deliberate. She started sitting closer. Not beside me, but near enough that I could hear the soft rustle when she turned a page. Sometimes she'd ask to borrow my pen. Once, I caught her tracing the name written on the side. She asked me once what I was studying. I said computers. She said, "You don't look like someone who hides behind screens." I asked what she meant. She didn't answer. Just folded her napkin into a small, uneven square and left it by her cup. It was raining the evening, she said, "Trust me." We were the last two in the cafe, the lights dimming, rain tapping on the glass. She leaned in just slightly, her voice low, like she wasn't talking about coffee or small talk anymore. "Trust me," she said again, and smiled. Then she left her phone on the table. For a moment, I thought she'd forgotten it. But when I picked it up, the screen lit with a single notification, a folder name I didn't recognize. Hidden. The light flickered against my hand as I stared at it, feeling something shift, small, invisible, irreversible. And for the first time, I didn't finish my coffee. I didn't open the folder. Not that night, or the next. But I kept thinking about it, how deliberate it felt, leaving the phone there. How she'd said "trust me" right before. The next morning, she wasn't at the cafe. Neither was her phone. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was none of my business. But my eyes kept searching for her anyway, scanning the window seats, the reflection on the glass door, the familiar cup with one sugar packet opened halfway. When she finally came back 3 days later, I almost laughed at how normal it felt. Like she'd only stepped out for air. "You disappeared," I said. She smiled softly. "I was visiting my daughter. She just started college." I nodded. I tried not to show it, the small, unreasonable ache in my chest. That afternoon, the cafe was quieter than usual. Rain again. She was grading papers, I was pretending to code. She kept tapping her pen against the same line, not really reading. Do you ever miss being younger? I asked, not sure why. She looked up, surprised. No one's ever asked me that before. Her answer came slow, careful. I don't miss being younger. I just miss not overthinking every silence. She said it like it slipped out before she could stop it. Then she smiled, half to herself. You probably don't get that yet. I wanted to tell her that I did, that I'd grown up in rooms filled with silence that meant everything and nothing. That I'd been lonely long before I learned to hide it behind humor. But I didn't. I just said, maybe I do. Later, she asked for help carrying boxes from her car. Old books, mostly. They smelled like dust and old wood. When I reached for one, our fingers brushed, barely. She didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. It wasn't a moment you could name. Just a pause that lasted too long, filled with things neither of us would say out loud. You remind me of someone, she said finally, breaking it. Yeah. My daughter's friend. You're careful. You listen more than you talk. I laughed lightly, but something in her tone stayed with me, like she was reminding herself of a line she shouldn't cross. We sat for a while after, drinking tea she'd made in a chipped ceramic pot. The steam fogged her glasses a little. I watched her push them back up with her knuckle, smiling without realizing it. She caught me staring. What? She asked, amused. Nothing, I said. Just, you look like someone who keeps secrets for a living. She tilted her head. And you look like someone who wants to know them. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of tea cooling, rain easing. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. When I left, she touched my sleeve, a quick, grounding gesture. Hey, she said quietly. You can trust me, you know. I smiled back, but my chest tightened. Because I already did. She started coming less often. Once a week. Then once every 2. Sometimes, not at all. No message. No reason. Just an empty chair by the window where her scarf used to hang over the back. The barista asked once, half joking, your coffee friend quit on you? I said she was busy. But I didn't really know. The day she came back, she looked different, softer maybe, or tired. She wore her hair tied up, a small pencil holding it together. When she saw me, she smiled like she wasn't sure if she should. I thought you disappeared, I said. She took a slow breath. You get used to disappearing when no one's looking for you. I didn't know what to do with that. We fell into a quiet rhythm again. She'd bring papers, I'd bring my laptop. Sometimes she'd ask what I was writing. I'd say, nothing. She'd laugh like she didn't believe me. That day, the rain had stopped, but the light stayed low, grayish, soft. I helped her fix a glitch on her old phone, and she leaned in close, squinting at the screen. I could smell the faintest trace of her perfume, something clean and old-fashioned. There, I said, handing it back. Her hand brushed mine. She didn't move it right away. Just that, a touch that lasted 1 second too long. Enough to make the room tilt a little. Then the doorbell jingled. A man walked in, older, neatly dressed. He looked around, spotted her. There you are, he said, relief in his voice. I thought you'd left already. Her whole posture changed. Straighter. Smaller. She stood quickly, smile practiced. Sorry, I lost track of time. He looked at me then, a quick, assessing glance, and nodded politely before heading to the counter. When she turned back, her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. Friend? I asked. My ex-husband, she said, too quickly. Then softer, he's complicated. I nodded, pretending that didn't sting. Pretending I didn't feel like the kid who'd wandered too close to something fragile. After he left, she sat down again, quieter this time. I didn't mean for that to be awkward, she said. It wasn't. It was. She traced her finger along the rim of her cup. Her hands trembled slightly. I don't usually talk to people this much, she said. You make it easy. Maybe that's the problem. I wanted to tell her she wasn't the only one. That I checked my phone every morning just to see if she'd texted. That I thought about her more than I should. But the words stayed where they always did, behind my teeth. When she stood to leave, I followed her outside. The air smelled like wet concrete and coffee grounds. She turned, smiling faintly. You shouldn't wait for me here, she said. It's not fair to you. I almost said I don't mind. Almost. Instead, I said, will I see you again? She looked at me for a long moment, then reached out, brushed a strand of hair from my forehead, her hand lingering just above my cheek. Don't make this harder, she whispered. And then she walked away. It had been 2 weeks since she walked away that night. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just a brief connection stretched too far by quiet afternoons and coffee steam. But every time I passed the cafe window, I still looked inside. When she finally texted, it was just 3 words, still at the park. I wasn't. But I went. She was sitting on a wooden bench by the lake, wrapped in a beige sweater, her hair slightly undone. There was a half-empty thermos beside her. I didn't think you'd come, she said, without turning. I didn't think you'd ask. She smiled faintly. I almost didn't. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was heavy, like the air before a storm. Kids were feeding ducks nearby. The world moved like nothing was happening, which somehow made it worse. She handed me the thermos. Tea, she said. I forgot sugar. I took a sip. Bitter. But I didn't mind. We talked about nothing for a while, how the trees were late shedding, how the benches were always cold. It was ordinary, until she said, quietly, he asked if I was seeing someone. I felt something in my stomach tighten. What did you say? That I wasn't. She paused. I don't know if that was true. She looked straight ahead when she said it, not at me. I didn't answer right away. My throat felt too dry for anything honest. Finally, I said, you shouldn't have to explain yourself. I'm not, she said. I'm just trying to figure out what this is. Her voice cracked slightly on this. A jogger passed. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke. I watched her twist her ringless finger, an old habit that made my chest ache for reasons I couldn't name. You ever feel, I said slowly, like you're standing too close to something you shouldn't want? She exhaled softly. Every day. The words just sat there between us, trembling in the air. She turned then, eyes searching mine. You're young. You think it's simple, that wanting something means you can have it. It's not about that, I said. It's, what, then, she asked, almost pleading. I didn't know how to answer. My hand moved slightly, almost without permission, resting on the bench between us, close enough for her to see, not close enough to touch. Her gaze dropped to it. Then back to my face. You shouldn't, she whispered. I know. But you want to. I swallowed. Yeah. A gust of wind scattered leaves around our feet. She brushed one off her knee and smiled, small, tired, like she already knew how this would end. You remind me what it's like to feel alive again, she said. That's dangerous. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to say then let's stop pretending we're fine. But instead, I said nothing. Her eyes softened. Then, barely audible, "What happens if we don't stop?" She didn't come back to the park. Not that day. Not that week. At first, I told myself she was busy again, that this was her rhythm. Disappear, return, vanish, reappear like some tide only she could control. But the tide didn't come back this time. Her phone stayed silent. Her table at the cafe, empty. Her coffee cup, untouched. I waited anyway. The barista asked if I wanted my usual. I said yes, but it didn't taste right. Every sound in the cafe started to echo differently, the hiss of the espresso machine, the scrape of chairs, the faint hum of the old ceiling fan. All of it too sharp, too present. Like the world was reminding me she wasn't part of it. That night, I drafted a message. "Hey. Just checking if you're okay. The park feels weird without you." Then I stared at the blinking cursor. Deleted it. A few days later, I saw her through the window of a bookstore across the street. She was with someone, a girl, maybe 19, 20. Same eyes. Same small gestures. Her daughter. They were laughing at something, heads close together. She looked lighter, younger somehow, like all the heaviness had been neatly folded away. I stood outside for too long, holding my breath, until they both looked up. Our eyes met for half a second before she looked away, quickly, deliberately. I wanted to step inside. To pretend I was just there for a book. But her expression stopped me. It wasn't cold. Just, final. I didn't see her again after that. Days blurred. The coffee shop lost its warmth. I tried other places, different streets, different corners of the city, but everywhere felt the same kind of empty. One evening, I came home to a small envelope wedged under my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a photo. A blurry one, taken from the cafe. 2 cups, side by side. Her handwriting on the back, "For when you forget it happened." I sat there for a long time, holding the photo. I thought about everything we didn't say. How she'd always pause before telling a story, like she was deciding which parts were safe to share. How she'd fold her napkin into perfect squares whenever she was hiding something. Maybe that was her way of protecting me. Or herself. Or both. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I took out my phone again, typed her name, stared at the empty chat. Still at the park. The words sat there, quiet and familiar. Then I locked the screen, put the phone down, and let the message stay unsent. Outside, rain started again, soft, persistent, unending. The same rain from the first day. The same sound she used to love. And for the first time, I didn't wait for it to stop. It had been a month. I'd stopped going to the cafe, but habit is stubborn. One evening, on my way home, I passed by anyway. The lights were low, the chairs stacked. The place looked smaller without her in it. When I turned the corner, I saw her. Standing by her car, keys in hand, phone pressed to her ear. She wasn't talking, just listening, nodding occasionally. Her eyes were tired. The kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep can fix. I almost kept walking. But she looked up. Saw me. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then she ended the call, slipped the phone into her bag, and smiled, faint, cautious, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. "You look the same," she said. "Been trying not to," I said. We ended up sitting on the hood of her car, side by side, watching the last bit of sunset get swallowed by clouds. "So," she said. "Still writing messages you never send? Still leaving things where people can find them?" She laughed under her breath. It was the kind of laugh that hides a sigh. "I shouldn't have left that photo," she said after a while. I'm glad you did. She looked at me then, properly, for the first time in weeks. There was something unguarded in her eyes. I hurt you, she said quietly. You didn't owe me anything. That doesn't mean I didn't. The words hung there, soft but heavy. The air smelled like wet pavement. A car passed, headlights washing over us. I keep thinking about the park, I said. You said it was dangerous. Feeling alive again. She smiled, just barely. I was right. I wasn't trying to fix you, I said. I just wanted to be there. I know, she said. That's what scared me. She folded her hands in her lap, fingers tracing invisible lines. You made it too easy to remember I'm still capable of wanting something. That's harder at my age. I wanted to tell her she wasn't old. That she still made the world tilt in quiet ways. But it felt too small, too selfish. Instead, I said, you make things feel real. Her eyes softened. That's the problem, isn't it? We sat there in silence. The kind that wasn't awkward anymore, just full. After a while, she said, you'll forget me one day. I don't think I will. You should. Her voice wavered slightly. Then she reached out, fingertips grazing the back of my hand. A brief, steady touch. I wish we'd met at a different time, she whispered. I wish time cared, I said. She smiled at that, tired, genuine. Then she nodded once, like she was finally letting go of something invisible between us. Okay, she said. And that was enough. 6 months later, the cafe changed owners. New lights. New chairs. New smell. But the same 8:47 a.m. sunlight still hit the window the same way, soft, patient, familiar. I didn't go there much anymore. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't have to. She and I found quieter places. On Tuesdays, the park. On Sundays, her kitchen, where the air always smelled like black coffee and rain. Nothing dramatic happened. No big reunion, no speeches. It just started again, gently, like something remembered rather than planned. The first time I visited her home, she apologized for the mess. There wasn't any. Just papers stacked neatly on the counter, a thermos on the windowsill, and a small plant that looked like it was trying its best. She poured tea into 2 chipped mugs. No sugar, again. I smiled. You still forget? I asked. I remember, she said. I just like that you notice. It was a small thing, the kind of thing that made everything else make sense. We never called it love. Not because it wasn't. But because we both knew love wasn't a word big enough for what this was, something steadier, quieter, built from pieces of all our almosts. Some nights, she'd sit beside me on the old bench by the lake, the same one from before. She'd bring her papers, I'd bring nothing. We didn't fill the air with talk. Just silence, shared easily now. I used to think endings were supposed to be loud, she said once. I smiled. Guess we're bad at endings. Or maybe we just changed them. I started showing her the things I used to hide, unfinished code, half-written notes, the folder on my desktop named Sunday. She never asked what was inside. She just said, I trust you, like the first time, but this time, it didn't sound like a dare. When I asked her once if she regretted it, all the pauses, the distance, the waiting, she just looked out the window, her fingers wrapped around the mug. Regret, she said softly, is just love that showed up too early. We waited. We learned. And then, after a long silence, she reached for my hand. Not hesitant, not fleeting. Just steady. Now, when the rain comes, and it always does, we don't rush for cover. We sit by the window, tea cooling between us, listening. Sometimes she'll tease me for still burning my tongue. Sometimes I'll remind her she still forgets sugar. And sometimes, when neither of us says anything, I'll look at her and think, this is what it means to arrive somewhere slowly. The photo she once left for me is pinned to the fridge now. 2 cups. 1 folded napkin. The past, forgiven. She catches me looking at it sometimes and says, still paused. I shake my head. Finally finished the sentence. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Tell me below, maybe your favorite small moment becomes the next one we remember together.